Hey, everybody. Welcome to Indeed. Welcome to the first of our two-part series on getting jobs in tech in partnership with Anita Borg. We're so glad to have you guys here, and we hope you're having a good time. Just to give you all another heads up, if you like this, we have another event on October 17th on interviewing. If you don't like this, you can come complain to me afterwards, or anyone else wearing an Indeed shirt. This is actually the first event like this that we've done, so we're still learning, we're still figuring things out, and we'd love your feedback. So I'm going to get you guys started in a moment. We'll have panel discussion with our speakers. We've got Cheryl Jennings from Indeed, Susie Jimenez from ForcePoint, Georgia Fontana from Microsoft, and Letitia Canuthia from Axiom, as well as our amazing moderator, Giselle Valenzuela Eldridge, representing Anita Borg in Austin, and she would be happy to share additional information about Anita Borg if you come find her, as well as we've had it showing up on the PowerPoint. So we'll have our discussion. There will be time for questions at the end, and then after that, feel free to stick around, talk to people, get more food, and we'll also have a few recruiters hanging around after the talk to continue reviewing resumes. Couple words about Indeed. My name is Rena. I don't know if I remember to say that. We are a company that helps people get jobs. So we do that through recruiting. We do that primarily through our website. So we have tons and tons of open roles in various technical fields. So we are hiring. Come talk to us. Come talk to everyone else wearing one of these shirts. We would love to have you. I'm one of the chairs of our Women in Tech organization, and we'd love to talk to you about working at Indeed. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce Amardeep Kalan from the Women in Tech program at Austin Community College to talk about the programs. I'm sorry, I'm not used to speaking on stage.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me 30 seconds to put in a shameless plug for my program. So we've got the Women in Tech program, which is really an amazing program at ACC because it doesn't just benefit the students, it's open to the community as well. We're doing empowerment modules and speaker series that we are going to start next month. And look for information about that on just Google Austin Community College Women in Tech, and you should be able to get to the website. Just Google it. Come to the empowerment modules. Come to the speaker series. It's really a great program. And thank you, Giselle, for, thank you indeed as well for letting me get these 30 seconds in. And we'd love to have people from Indeed and love to have you come in and talk to the women in the program. Thank you.
So as Rena mentioned, I am the community leader, or one of the community leaders, for AnitaB.org Austin. And if you don't know what we're about, well, hopefully you've been reading the PowerPoint there, but our mission is to help women to recruit and retain women in tech and also to advance the careers of women in tech. If you are interested at all in finding out more, please see me after. Or you can also speak to Jyothi, who is my co-leader. She's right there. She can also talk to you about our organization. And this is just one of our events here that we've done in town. We've done several. We do about one a month. We don't charge any dues. We don't expect you all to pay for coming to our events. We try to get all our events to be for free. And many companies in town are very happy to help to make them free. So please come and talk to us afterwards. Sorry. I'll be your moderator. And first off, I wanted to thank all of our volunteers for putting together a great event. We can't do it without you guys. So can you give them a round of applause, please? And also, I wanted to thank our sponsor, Indeed. They are also our annual sponsor for the chapter. So thank you, Indeed, for supplying us with this great space and the food and for our sponsorship for the year. Okay, so you are at the How to Nail the Resume panel, and you've met our panelists, so let's start with the questions. All right, so most folks that I talk to that I try to help with their job searches, they're very shocked to find out that all these resumes that they've been blasting to various different positions have not been getting into human hands. There is something out there called the ATS, or Applicant Tracking System, and it stands between you and getting your resume into a human pair of hands. Hopefully you're aware of this evil that lurks out there, but if you are not, what would our panelists give you as tips on how to get past the ATS? Because basically the ATS is it's a program. It's software. And so it searches your resume for certain keywords, and if it doesn't find what it's looking for, then it filters your resume out. So what would you recommend as a tip to get past the ATS?
Hello? Yeah. So I found out about ATS software years back, and I didn't even know it was called ATS until maybe a few months ago. However, I knew that as a security professional that they filtered out on credentials. So, for example, if you're looking for a security job and you're looking for maybe a senior level job, they filter out on CISSP. So equip yourselves. So make sure that, you have those keywords in there, but also support them with the right credentials. So you don't want to put in a credential and then go for the interview or for the screening and you don't have it. Things like formatting, try not to put in too many complicated things, because they pass that information, and sometimes your resume, which you spend a lot of time working on, becomes corrupt. So that's my take on it. My take is get your keywords in there, your skills, align that, put that in there. If you know about cloud, put that in there. AWS, Azure, the words that recruiters are looking for.
Yeah, and just to dovetail off that a bit, you can actually use the job posting as your guide. What the problem is, often people will build a resume and they'll use that resume for every job. But in fact, it should be the reverse. You should be customizing your resume for the job that you're going for. And you can use the actual job posting, because they put all the descriptors in the posting, and weave those words from the actual job description into that. Now, some of them are easy to do. Like at Microsoft, I manage a team of engineers and consultants, which are also engineers, and they're all customer-facing. And so in those technical scenarios, sometimes it's a little bit easier because we're looking for SQL. We're looking for, all these different technologies and coding platforms and all the space that's in between all that. So that's easy because most people have a degree in engineering if they're going to apply for those types of roles. However, there's a lot of roles within Microsoft that's not the case, where it is a little bit more, not ambiguous, but less prescriptive, I would say, than an engineering type profile. So I would just say customize your resume to the job, and it'll also help you prepare for the interview when you get to that stage, because you've kind of tailored your whole talk track and presentation of who you are so far in this resume all around that job, versus trying to get that job to go all around your resume, which, like she said, it'll just put it out. It's just not going to be effective. Lastly, I would just say Microsoft is huge on this. I've gotten interviews and hired people from social media platforms. So a lot of places, LinkedIn, of course, Microsoft purchased LinkedIn, and we're doing a lot of dynamic things that are going to be coming soon in that space. But I would definitely go out there if you know who the company is and some executives, and reach out for connection with them. Do a little bit of research around that. It's very impressive when people come to the table with some understanding about that business. Do you understand the market contractions we're in? Maybe we're being acquired. Maybe there's an M&A. Maybe there's all these things. Just educate yourself a bit, and it'll also help you prepare a better resume.
The tip that I would have is have a PDF version and also a Word version of your resume. I've seen a lot of UX and graphic designers really fancy and add all these extra boxes and frames, and that doesn't go well with an ATS. So keep it in a text format. And, I agree with everything said here. Use the job description and add those keywords. As recruiters, when we go out and look for resumes, we look for the, cloud, engineer, SQL, all these keywords, and, make sure you have the skill set before you throw it on your resume.
Don't just put it on there.
Yeah, don't lie.
Yeah. List where you've used them. The more time, it's an algorithm, the more times you list it on your resume, the higher your, chances of getting a call back from a recruitment or a hiring manager that, is interested in your resume. So keep it simple. Keep it simple.
So big +1 to everything that's already been said. A couple other things that I don't think have been said yet. We did talk about matching your resume to what's actually in the job description. One thing to look out for is if you're using abbreviations or acronyms, if it's spelled out in the job description, make sure you spell it in the same way on your resume in case that is something that they do filter on. Another thing is, I know everybody always says this, but I find the easiest way to get around ATS is don't end up there in the first place. Find an actual person that can maybe hand your resume to somebody. And the last one is, if you'll forgive me for looking at my phone in a little bit, I recently found out about a website that will actually compare your resume to a job posting and tell you how well they line up. And if somebody knows what it is off the top of their head, they can chat. What was it? Say it again. Jobscan.co. Thank you. So, and that's an option that you guys have if you want to compare, how does my resume actually match the job description. I like it. I can support getting crafty.
I think I just learned something.
I didn't put it in my phone. I'm not texting, I promise.
We will be posting the video sometime after this, so great answers, everybody. Cheryl, just to kind of add to what you just said, I have also been given the tip of if you don't know anybody at the company, which is likely, it's possible, you can look them up on LinkedIn. What you can do on LinkedIn is you can look them up by just look up the company name, and it'll tell you, even by degrees of separation, the people on that company that are somehow related to you. So it'll be maybe a second or third degree connection. Even if you do it that way, you can still message that person and ask them, if they're willing to help you out with your application. And even that's better than just coming in cold and just being at the mercy of the ATS. And just to kind of add on to what everybody else has said here, I cheat at that. I mean, I'm honest about my skill set, but I'll use the exact verbiage that's on the job description, verbs and everything. I'll just copy paste it and put it in my resume, my version of the resume that I'm sending to them. Because I make, like Georgia said, I make a version for every job that I apply to. So, great tips, guys.
One thing I wanted to add is half of getting what you want is asking for it. Be aggressive when you look for a job. Don't just assume that it got to somebody. Follow up and ask. I mean, we as recruiters get impressed, but there's also a limit. Don't send 10 emails in one day requesting feedback, but half of getting what you want is asking for it. So don't be afraid to ask for a referral.
You'd be surprised how often people are willing to help you out if you just ask. And also, just some people have asked in the past, how do I meet these other people? One of the things I've found really helpful is actually volunteering. If there's places like Girl Start or Code to College or Chick Tech, meeting other women that volunteer in these places is a great way. Or, yeah, there you go. Like this event here is also great ways to increase your network. Sorry.
And yes, AnitaB.org will afford you many networking opportunities. We also, if you volunteer with us, I have introduced numerous people to decision makers at companies here locally. This is a great opportunity for those who are looking for jobs to meet the people that make decisions at these companies. So definitely come see me after if you're interested in volunteering. Okay, so question number 2. So most folks that I talk to, again with their job searching, are pretty scandalized to figure out how much time a resume actually, once they've gotten past the ATS, how much time someone actually spends scanning that resume once it's in their hands. So about how much time do you guys think you spend scanning a resume?
A few minutes. So, and I say that because most of the time there's a time crunch, right? Most people there's a lot of work, and you just have a few minutes to decide whether that's, a good resume or not. So it's very important to, follow some of the rules, we are mentioning here. People are busy. You have an interview coming up. You have 2-minute meetings after that. You look at it, and if you see the key skills you're looking for, that's it. You're like, yeah, we'll look for that. So, and that's just speaking for myself. So just bear that in mind when you're tailoring that resume. Just put in the relevant stuff.
I love that. Yeah, Microsoft is a little bit different, right? If your resume is selected that you would then be considered a candidate, they do what they call a pre-screen. And it's for any role at Microsoft, whether it's the retail store or whatever the case may be. And then a recruiter reaches out, and they do what they call a pre-screen. They're going to ask you like 5 questions. It's going to be really brief. It's going to be really short. And they're looking for the answers kind of like tracking to the verbiage of the job description, right? They're going to have a couple questions. If you're technical and you're applying for technical, they're going to do some preliminary technical questions. If you're applying for many other roles that are not technical at Microsoft, program management would be one of many. There's going to be questions oriented then around that. If you get past that 5-question screen, I don't know if it's 5, but I know for technical it's 5. Then they schedule you for a technical interview if you're going the technical route. The technical route is you go before a panel of senior engineers, and they interview you together. And they want to assess what level you're at technically, because this is for the technical roles primarily, they're customer facing. Customers buy our engineers. We go in and run their infrastructure in different stacks throughout technology. And so it's really important that we get people that have other skills though beyond technical, right? They have to have social skills. They have to have problem solving. They have to have people skills, those types of things. But the process is kind of the same regardless of the role you interview, right? They'll do a pre-screen. Then, if it's not technical, they'll move you to a manager interview. And the thing that I scan for, I have 32 people on my team, and I actively recruit for diversity as well as for Microsoft in general, and our Microsoft Academic College Hire program as well, is I look for congruency and consistency. So if I see your job hopping all over the place, I want to know why. Now with engineers, it's an easy explanation typically because they're doing their own consulting gigs, right? That's what they were doing. They were doing the same thing, similar things that a Microsoft engineer would do, but they basically were subcontractors, right? And so often they'll go from project to project. But if you don't have an explanation as to why, if you're in jobs less than 2 years repetitively, I'm gonna want to know why. So I'm going to start asking questions because I'm looking for stability, I'm looking for consistency, I'm looking for congruency. And then I'll start asking you questions around the timeline, and I'll keep circling back and back and back to see if you're congruent, because obviously we want people that are focused and stable and passionate about being at Microsoft. Onboarding at Microsoft, costs us a lot of money, so we want to make sure we get the right people. So that's congruency, and then the verbiage I'm going to be looking for. If I'm looking for a DevOps person, I'm going to be looking for DevOps, or if I'm looking for someone Azure-oriented or cloud-oriented. I'll be scanning for what size of environments have you actually supported. So if you're asking for a technical role and you've been a subcontractor here and there or worked for some other corporation, I need to see the scale and size of the environment you have. because our customers are all enterprise customers, and they're huge. All the major companies in the world run on Microsoft platform to some extent. So those are just some high-level tips. And then make sure you rehearse the answer, because if you hesitate, then I'm going to really question what's going on here, because you want someone who's confident about who they are. You're telling me the story in your resume here of who you are, so you've got to be confident in that story.
So, I mean, I can only speak for myself, and I've been doing technical recruiting already for over 10 years, and I'm not a technical person, but I can get away with trying to figure out, is this a network person, DevOps person? So again, going back to keeping it simple, adding dates. I would suggest month and year. You don't have to get too detailed, when you get into the day, that doesn't matter. It's just looking for that. And if there is a gap in your resume, address it in the resume. Did you take a sabbatical? Did you take time off? Or address it. And when we scan resumes, we look for the dates, the titles, and again, going back to the titles, a lot of companies call your job title different things. So when you list your title on your resume, what is the company that you're applying for calling it? Call yourself that. And as recruiters, we're not technical enough to know that a release liability engineer is also a DevOps engineer, depending on the level of the person who is looking at your resume. So again, keep it simple and use keywords that are on the job description.
I think the most valuable tip I can think of is don't make me search for your qualifications. And I think one of the things that people often do is they'll put a big skills section up at the top, which is great because it puts it right up front and center. But don't forget about the softer skills. So if you're just putting in C, C++, or Java, or things like that, one of the things I started doing was also having a specialties, which included things like remote team management, debugging technical issues, managing high-profile clients, things like that. So don't be afraid, if that's called out in the job description, to pull that out and put that under your skills. That way I don't have to read through what jobs have you actually held to see, have you dealt with this sort of situation before.
I just learned something again. So you guys kind of got a little bit into the next question, or I guess next set of questions. So it was around what highlights do you scan for? And then what are, some of the red flags that you scan for as well? So if there's anything you want to add to that.
I think red flags for me is simple things, and you guys have had this, before, spell check, grammar check. That's just a no-no. It signifies, laziness, formatting, an application that doesn't cater to the job description. So straight away, you don't know whether the person's confused or they're just too lazy to edit their resume. She said it. It's a job. You have to put in work. You have to adhere. You have to fine-tune your resume to the job description. So things like that. You get resumes as an attachment without anything to it, and you don't know what to do with that. So things like that just suggest people are not paying attention to detail. At work, in a fast-paced IT world, you do not want someone who you'll have to chase to send you the email they promised you 2 days ago. You want people who are going to carry themselves. So things like that make you wonder when you're going through a resume. So they are minor, but they carry a lot of weight.
I agree. Just to add to what I've already said, because we talked about it in the previous question, a red flag to me is when you don't have your story aligned to your resume. So, because when I see it, I'm going to immediately scan for very specific things, and I'll retain it pretty fast. And then I'm going to start asking you behavioral questions around that. And if you're not confident with the data that you've put on the resume, where you feel like you can tell the story and answer any myriad of questions that may come out around that, then you need to rehearse it. I will rehearse. I'll run around my house with a thing in my hand, and I'll, be doing it. Because that's a huge red flag. We always say we can teach people technical things. You give me the right person, I can teach them to be a rock star technical person. I can't teach behavioral core competency type attributes, which one would be, how are you effectively representing yourself in that discussion? Are you congruent with what you have on your resume? Can you answer questions? If I do a double click down on the jobs you have listed or the skills you say you demonstrated, because we're going to ask difficult questions. We're going to ask behavioral questions, such as, tell me a time when the customer did not agree with your recommendation, and if you did it, you knew it'd bring them down, right? We deal with very complex, large, massive, $100, $300 million agreements with customers. And so we have to have people that are really solid on telling their story and being congruent with how they're representing that in the resume.
So as a recruiter, you can imagine we get a lot of resumes. So there's nothing more frustrating than finding what you think is the right candidate and going through the entire interview process, which costs money and time, when you don't really want the job. So be very honest at the beginning so one of the red flags that I look for is I do make candidates jump through hoops. I received your resume. Can you go on our website and apply for the role? Once I receive it, let's schedule a time for you to call me tomorrow at 2. I make you jump through hoops. It's a test. Do you really want this job? I'm not going to go chase you. If I have to chase you, it's because you don't really want this job. So I know everybody here wants a job, but you'd be surprised how many, I call them looky-loos, that are just kind of wanting to know more about the company but don't really want a job, or they get afraid that their name will get out and their boss will find out they're looking for a job when you start really engaging and setting up interviews. So red flag is if a recruiter asks you to do something, do it. We have a lot of power. We just do. That's our job, to read people and read into what their intentions are.
So for me, I think red flags in terms of scanning a resume are things where I can tell you've got a bad attitude. Not that I'm saying anybody here has a bad attitude. So referring to yourself as a rock star developer in your resume, referring to yourself as an exceptional developer, I've seen that before. I'm like, okay. Talking about things that you've worked on and maybe in a negative way. So something like revamped, crufty old system for such and such. It kind of shows that you kind of have a negative attitude about things. So those are some of the red flags that I look for. Once I do get a resume for somebody who is coming on site, one of the things I really like to see is evidence that they have initiative. So if there was a problem that you identified, like, I automated such and such process to use this piece here, put that on there. I love to see that sort of stuff, that you identified a problem and you took steps to actually solve it. I think that's all I was going to say here.
I don't have any power, by the way. Our recruiters have power.
Okay, so we addressed it somewhat here. By the way, there is someone that came up with a language called Rockstar, so that people would stop calling themselves Rockstar developers.
I like that.
So how would you address employment history gaps in a resume? If you were one of us, how would you address employment gaps in your history?
I think employment...
In a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah. I think employment gaps are valid. I unintentionally had one years ago when I moved to the States 10 years ago. I found out I was going to have a baby. I had a baby. The economy was really bad, so there was no jobs. And when I had a baby, they were premature, so I stayed out for 21 months. And it was one of those, you lose a lot of confidence, so that's the first thing you need to realize. You're alone for 21 months. But it's not a bad thing. I think it's addressing it and not try to cover it up. And then also try and do something with the time. So you're taking time off to look after, family, or just, I worked on my MS, and I put that in there, and I used that as a reason to be away. You can learn soft skills. It doesn't even have to be anything like, technical or that demands a lot of your time. It could be, I learned how to use this, or I volunteered to do. So there's valid things you could do to make up for the time you're out, or to show that it wasn't just idle.
So Do you recommend that someone put in parentheses somewhere in the job history, or where would you put that in a resume?
I put mine in the main body, and I'll wait for the recruiters in the group to tell us what they did, and I just put the time, and I just, So, you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when we're scanning, I mean, we were looking through hundreds of resumes. We look for those gaps. I don't want to have to go ask you. Just I want all the information up front. And I've seen things like sabbatical. I've seen took time off to travel the world. I've seen went back to school. I've seen took care of a sick family member. Those are all valid reasons.
So you just list it like it's a job?
Like it's a job.
Okay, with the
Yes.
dates on it.
You
Okay.
don't have to get into detail about it in your resume, but if it comes up during an interview, be prepared to answer that question. So just address it up front.
Yeah, on my resume, I took a year off when I had my daughter, and so I just submitted maternity leave for that year. An idea, if you're coming back from an extended leave, this is all just an idea. I don't know. I haven't actually seen this before, but something that you could do. So if you are taking steps to learn these new skills, I have seen people put in like projects section. So maybe you have a gap in your history, but there's something neat that you've been working on recently, and putting a link to your GitHub or whatever, so that people can see that, oh, you just haven't been letting your skills languish, which is a terrible way to put it. If you needed to actually take the time off, I apologize. But just doing something, I think I hear a lot of people get concerned that you've lost a lot of your skills. So if there's things that you're actively doing to stay up to date, just put links into what you've been working on.
So are there sections that you focus on the most? And then the reverse of that is, what are the sections you focus on the least?
I look at the skills, so because that's important to me. I look at the projects, especially if I'm looking at a senior level resume. I look at the projects they've worked on and what they entailed. What else do I look for? I look for timelines. I look for job history, just the whole. What I'm trying to do is evaluate and see, has this person grown, right? Am I looking at someone who is focusing too much on the past? Right? If you graduated 15 years ago, 10 years ago, the focus shouldn't be your degree. It should be the things that you built up and learned and added to your resume. So I just try to look at it like kind of holistically and look at those things.
So you want to see like a progression in career?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just a little bit of a different bent on this. Diversity and inclusion is really critical. And at Microsoft, we take it very, very seriously, and we have a lot of global efforts to make sure that we're driving our values of diversity and inclusion in our hiring practices. When you think about some of the things they just said, filling gaps, let's say you had a baby, maybe you get married. Let's say, it was not a positive situation. Went through a divorce, needed to take some time off, had to get a break. Taking care of aging parent, too much with work, and that I had to take some time off. Because if you think about it from a diversity and inclusion perspective, inclusion being no perspective is wrong, it's that individual's perspective, right? Diverse being everyone has a point of view. When you come authentically at it like that, and then you get into a discussion in the interview, it shows maturity. It shows maturity, it shows authenticity, it shows planning, right? It shows someone who is, if it's for one of the negative situations, that you understand what you can and cannot balance, and you made decisions around that, right? That shows good character, good decision making, problem solving. There's a lot of things you can read in that story. So don't shy away from it, because you can turn the saying lemons into lemonade. That's the bent I would take, and especially because we are a diverse population that's in this room, right? Multi-diverse. We have pressures, and we're seeing it more across the board, where people are taking time off for the kids, right? They don't want to work. Someone's going to sacrifice. They'll downsize. Someone will stay home. These are trends in the marketplace. So don't think that your scenario is so unique that it's going to stick out like a sore thumb and, oh, my God, they're never going to talk to me again. Everyone lives in the gray. That's people management. They live in the gray, not the black and the white.
Hey,
mostly just a +1 to all the things, in particular around growth. I guess there's just one.
Let's
thing
start on your side so
Okay.
that you don't have to. You
Oh,
can-
sure, no
okay.
problem.
You get a shot at this.
I guess I did have one other thing to add about the growth, because that's exactly the thing that I look for as well. But growth doesn't necessarily mean that you're a manager. I look for like expanding the scope of responsibilities. Were you designing like little components? Were you designing smaller things? Have you now managed to go in that you're actually building systems or helping other people build systems? So that's another like technical growth as well, and not just like becoming a manager or a team lead.
How would we as resume writers address non-traditional educational paths? For example, folks that don't have CS, they have a different degree other than CS, or they're boot camp grads, or they came out of the military, or are self-taught.
So I think this will also go back to an answer I had previously, linking to your projects. Or if you were able to find ways to use tech in your existing role, like you were maybe doing marketing and you figured out, oh, I can write a program to actually, evaluate the effectiveness of this. So call that out. That's great. But we want to see that we can't just necessarily just take your word for it because you put, like, I know JavaScript on your resume. If you have something where we can actually see it in action, like have a portfolio, have a website, something like that, will help kind of back up those claims.
For non-traditional educational paths.
Just list it. You'd be surprised how many hiring managers will look past the CS degree, and if you've worked at a company and you have some experience, they're not just going to say no. They're looking again for the soft skills, because the technical skills could be taught. So, I mean, you could come in and really wow them, and they don't have a CS degree, but their attitude was, what I'm looking for. It's harder to work for somebody that has a bad attitude with a CS degree than the other way around. So just list what you have. Be honest. And it's about who you know. If you can make that LinkedIn connection and, get in front of somebody, that's how you get past something like that. So that's my recommendation.
So there's a lot of, there's a trend, a ton of trend in the marketplace today, and it's called middle skills, right? So companies like Microsoft, we've worked with the city of Austin. We actually just gave the Markle Foundation $25 million specifically to build out middle skill programs, because we also want folks going from waiting 4 years or 6 years if they're getting more than a bachelor's of science. How do we ramp people faster, right? How do we take that from years to months? Because part of that initiative, the idea is to raise people out of poverty, right, and to get people into tech and retool people, because there's a whole mass of people that weren't in the wave like I was, where there was no technology and I had to learn it, adopt it, sell it, and now I live it, right? Not everyone's in that space. So middle skills is a strategic priority in the marketplace. I would do some research on it. There's amazing things happening in that space. And part of our grant and foundation to the Markle Foundation is how are they going to execute that and scale that out for us. We also have given other grants for middle school programs. We've done pilots around with the White House, actually, under the Tech Hire Initiative. Similar thing. How do you take someone in months and give them some accreditations versus years in college? And the pilots suggest very fruitful results, which was we took people that were all customer service. Nobody was technical. In New York City, no less. And all were unemployed. And we gave them 4 basic certifications. We do the same for vets. We have a whole military program as well. And it was cloud administration, network administration, I forget the other one, server-oriented, and then there was a 4th one. Baseline accreditations that could get you a job at a partner of Microsoft. It could get, potentially get you a job at Microsoft. So we are also recognizing as we accelerate our push into all, our generation is aging. We're bringing in younger people that are born with devices in their hand. The whole game and landscape is changing, and more people don't want the college debt, right? And so how do we invest in middle skills to still capture the best and the brightest? Lastly, I will say that we also have programs at Microsoft called Big Time or internship programs. We also have the Microsoft Academic College Hire Program. And in that program, we hire 500. We have university recruiters that come around, and we hire 500 a year globally And we do that year over year. We're doing that to insert diversity and inclusion, but we're doing that because as an innovation company, women are now the number one buyers and consumers from a financial perspective worldwide. That's going to continue to grow, and the demographic of consumers coming up is younger, right? So, think through the middle skills piece. I would say, even if you took a couple of years off, go do one class online or something for something basic like that. You'd be amazed how, as you're staying home with your kids for 2 years, you could rack up 4 or 5 simple, easy accreditations, and these would be accreditations from a middle skills perspective that are designed and oriented for non-technical people, right? So there's a lot of options around that. I would really do some research. We're heavily invested in it. And then lastly, I would also, one of the things that we look for in the resumes, especially when there are gaps, one way you can think about filling gaps is stay engaged in community work, right? If you're not working, or if you're looking, or if you stayed home to take a break from kids or whatever, Microsoft as an innovator tremendously values community involvement on any level, technically or otherwise. And those things are really great to add to your resume. So, helping drive STEM events in your local school, right? Things like that. It really shows your passion around technology. Again, that congruency. You may say you know code X, code B, code C, but then are you living that out in a rounded way also in your community is a big focus for Microsoft.
Anita B. does a lot of work in the community. Shameless plug. So please, come see me after.
I think people who start off in IT in the non-traditional sense show determination, they show grit, and I think they have just a natural sense of curiosity. And I think in IT that is going to drive you further and grow you in leaps and bounds. So curiosity, people who have that skill are able to go and maybe work on a system that's not even under their purview, just because they're curious and teach themselves and become a SME. And that's one way to grow. So curiosity is just in deciding and identifying something that you want and going after it and just putting in the work in your time. I think that just, for me, if I see a resume like that, that is just straight away someone I want to talk to a bit more because there's something there.
Thank you, ladies. So one other question. I think we only have time for one more, right? Okay. So how to best, for those that are, I read a lot about folks over the age of, I think it's 50 or 55, having some trouble getting, jobs at this day and age. And so what tips would you give someone in that age bracket to write their resume in such a way that presents them in the best light so that they're not age discriminated against? Do they only include the last 10 years of experience? Do they remove the date on their graduation, on their resume? What do you suggest?
I look for, partners, people who are going to support me. And like, someone mentioned, soft skills are things that you build out throughout your career. So those, when I see a resume like that, those are some of the things I'm looking for. Like, Georgia said, tech, you can teach anyone tech, but you can't teach soft skills. So resumes like those, like that appeal to me, and I'm more likely to just spend a bit more time looking at that. So it shouldn't be, it shouldn't put anyone off, anyone who wants to still go ahead and apply for a job, even, at that after they reinvent themselves or as a second career.
Yeah, Microsoft, as I said prior, we're deeply invested in middle skills programs all over the world. And so we recognize that in our hiring practices as well. And just restate the question again.
How would someone in the age bracket that's getting age discriminated against, how would they best present their resume?
Yeah, so a couple of things to know about Microsoft. Microsoft will never put in a position that we post anywhere in the world degree required, because Bill Gates never got a college degree. So never let the fact that you don't have a degree stop you, because a lot of people at Microsoft don't, right? Ageism is a discriminatory practice. Microsoft will not tolerate any such behaviors under any level. And we do take diversity and inclusion very serious, and that includes things like ageism, right? I do not recommend that you hide time on your resume or change dates, because at Microsoft, we welcome all people from all parts of the world just as you are. It's really about how you're competing for that job, right? So tell the truth, list it there. Microsoft does not practice ageism, nor would we tolerate that practice within our company. I just hired, as a matter of fact, 5 new people on my team, and all of them are close to my age. I'm 53, right? And so we don't look at any factor about you as a candidate other than, the skills and the soft skills that you're bringing to us in your interview practices. We welcome all ages and every other fashion around that.
So I think when you are a seasoned, candidate looking for a job, don't get intimidated by your age. I mean, it's just a number. And I think it goes back to keeping your skills fresh. Are you still working on legacy? People have moved on from that. Go to a boot camp, find a program that'll teach you, you said it well, find something that you're passionate about and go after that. Yes, resumes do go back 10 years, and, yes, people do look at the date that you graduated. Those are just facts. But what I would say is, stay relevant within your skills. If you're still working on old technology, you will not get a call back because people have moved on. So that's my recommendation.
So I don't have a whole bunch of experience in this, but I think I may have drank the A/B testing Kool-Aid a little bit too much. If you find that you aren't getting callbacks on your resume, try only doing the last 10 years. Try leaving the date off of your college graduation. See what happens. Be curious. And I guess one of the things in terms of once you actually get in for an interview, one of the things that I like to ask more senior people is, what have you recently learned from a junior developer, to kind of show that you are humble and you realize that even though you've been in this industry a long time, you may not know everything. And also just showing that you're still curious, that you're still learning new things, and that you're not just stuck in what you originally started out with.
One thing you may think about, because we do use LinkedIn a lot as well, to that point, I don't have everything on my resume. I've been in IT over 30 years. I think I have 15 or 20 maybe. I can't remember. But that's where you use LinkedIn, right? You can put in LinkedIn your full profile, and on your resume, put the alias to your LinkedIn, however your naming convention is in LinkedIn, and say, if you would like more information about my skills, please go to my LinkedIn profile, and you can see the remainder of my skill sets. Just as an idea.
All right, so it is time for audience Q&A. Who would like to ask a question?
Thank you for all the wonderful information you guys have given us. I'm super appreciative for that. I noticed that you guys focused a lot on soft skills, which is something that, because I'm younger, I don't have a lot of experience right now in this field, but I pride myself on my soft skills. And I don't know the best and most effective way to list that on a resume without just being like, I'm good at soft skills, but I don't know a lot yet, And so what would you guys suggest for that?
Soft skill, you can't really list them on a resume. It's just getting past the ATS and getting in front of somebody and, my recommendation to candidates is be yourself. Don't try to tell the hiring manager what they want to hear. They're going to see through that. Just be who you are. If you, fake it till you make it, and then once you get into the job, you're not going to be happy because your personalities just don't mesh. So when you do go on an interview, it's your opportunity to interview that person as well, not the other way around. Can you work with this person every single day? Can you take direction from them? Can you learn from them? Are they going to mentor you? What are you looking for? So you may want to list out what soft skills are you looking for as well, to see if it's a good personality match.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I'm happy to mentor you. I mentor a ton of people. And I think that's a key thing. You need to get a good mentor who's got a lot of business acumen and experience, and they can give you a lot of tools and resources to help you level yourself up around what are skills, what are the difference between skills, attributes, and core competencies, right? Some of the basic stuff, and then build from there, because someone who's done it for a long time will have a sense of a pretty good read after they have a conversation, in some areas you can lean in on. So I'm happy to mentor you if you'd like to come later, and we do have a ton of resources to build that skill set up. Now, it's true, you don't necessarily list them on there, but if they are skills that are primary, like one of mine is negotiations, because I was an account exec for 25 years. That there's a lot of attributes and soft skills that is insinuated on that level of discussion, right? So you can choose words that insinuate leadership capabilities or soft skill capabilities. You may have to pull out the dictionary. I have a time or two. I guess now it's just, Google it. But use the internet, find out, what are the top soft skills out there that are required. Get a good mentor. I'm raising my hand. And get some good resources in your hand, and you'd be surprised how quickly. It's more about you identifying what you have. You already have it there. You just need some confidence to see it. And I'm happy to help you navigate that.
I think at entry level, there's a lot you've done. You could have been a youth, a leader in a camp. It's finding someone and, people offering to write your resume or help you write your resume so you can bring out those skills, because I believe they're there. Even things like babysitting, responsible for taking care of 2 children during the summer holidays. That's leadership. That's, showing that you're able to work effectively by yourself. So it's just finding someone to help you with that resume if you're finding that you don't know how to express that in the way that is. Is it on mute? No. Yeah?
So I have, whoa, it's really loud. I have offered various people in AnitaB.org to share my network with them, and I'm offering that to you as well. So what's great about a networking opportunity like AnitaB.org is that, you have access to lots of, women who are going to be very empathetic to what you're going through, and are going to be very happy to help you out. So definitely, connect with me afterwards.
Just one thing, know your stories. So when you go in an interview, I've been in a few before where someone will say something like, I firmly believe in dealing with problems, head on before they become major issues. Awesome, that's a great value to have. Can you tell me a time when you actually did that? So rehearse your stories so that you can have examples that back up your soft skills. Give an example, and they don't necessarily have to be at a company where you're at school or at a family. If you don't have a large work history to draw from, just jot them down, write them, practice them, so you can talk about like what you've actually done that aligns with the soft skills that you're seeing that you have.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I have an unconventional work history. I've basically been freelancing since 1996. So I'm going to be that person that is not in the 2 years at a time job. I mean, less than that. But I've worked for dozens of companies, national companies, cultural institutions, government offices, doing related work, but it's been a non-technical field. How would you suggest I cover that in my resume? I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on it, but I would love to hear your input.
So are you changing careers, or?
I look at it as I'm adding skills, because I think what I've been working in, for example, I'm a tailor at Ballet Austin right now, but I've worked in film, I've worked in entertainment, and my ideas for technology are related to those experiences. So I look at it as I'm just adding skills. do you have any recommendations? What are your insights?
I wouldn't list the dates of your, when I look at resumes, I see consultants, which is fine. Just list the majority of what you've done and just list your clients. You don't have to go into the dates, like from, this year to that year. This is my responsibility. This is what I've done. And these are the list of clients that I've worked with. So it shows that you've got diversity experience, that you've worked with a lot of people, and you don't really have to explain the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. And it shows that you're working independently and know how to run your own business, and those are things that we look for as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and it comes back to doing research, right? Microsoft is making a big push with some technological advances. Think HoloLens, for example. Not HoloLens, I'm sorry. Yes. And they're actually using our technologies in movies now to simulate, all this crazy stuff. So Microsoft's very deeply embedded in the industry, and we have an industry practice around it. So what I would say is, look at Microsoft, check it out, look at our technologies, right, sections, and you'll see we have a whole thing, mixed reality, virtual reality. That's the section I would coach you to go to. Okay. Because people or even in our Xbox division, right, and Microsoft culture in general is pretty laid back. It's fast-paced, but it's just cool people doing cool things. And so, you got gamers who've just been doing gaming competitions and stuff like that, and they're applying for software engineering jobs at Microsoft and getting them, right? Because this is all they do, live and breathe, is gaming, right? And who better do we want in our Xbox division than people like that are out there, getting people excited and passionate about our technologies in that space. So we do have a lot around that. I would do some research on mixed reality, virtual reality, and there's actually a couple of certs you can get now around virtual reality. So I would get online. You could probably get them at ACC, or you may be able to get some direction from Anita B. But there's definitely some out there. Start there, and then I would agree with you. If you've been freelancing for 10 years, I would say 10 years freelancer, here's my top clients. Okay. And here's some key outcomes I drove for those top clients. Okay.
Yeah, I'm almost done with an associate's in computer programming at ACC, actually, and that's how I found out about this night. So thank you very much.
I think that's very loud, sorry. You have a lot of experience, and going back to what she said earlier, maybe you should have a portfolio somewhere, a URL or a link where you can showcase your work for 10 years.
I have a website.
Yeah,
I have a website.
That right there is something someone can follow up and go in and really see your skills and how things you've done in the past.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a question of, and I think it would be relevant to a lot of people. How do you, let's say you have a certain experience, and you don't want to, let's say, be boxed into what you were doing before, you want to pivot a little bit. What are some good ways to, kind of move your experience, or, it's still relevant, but you don't want to be doing the exact same thing. So currently I'm doing technical customer support, and I would like to do something more innovative. So there's not a lot of room for that in my current role. There is some, and I try to do that. So that's kind of from my perspective, where I'm coming from, how do I not just keep getting put into technical customer support?
I think it sounds like you need to volunteer for some things, projects. It could be external to your organization, but it's a good way to start. So you're still in employment, but you're building up on the things you want to do.
We actually deal with this all the time because we live in a fast-paced technology space that's moving so fast. Azure's changing so technically, so fast. It changes daily. We are changing code in it daily and adding workloads. So our engineers have a constant battle because they have to be worldwide subject matter experts. We expect nothing less, right? They have to have depth, but they have to have breadth as well, because that is what technology is requiring today. It's great if you're a deep developer or something like that, right? I need somebody who can do Intune, maybe some EMS, enterprise mobility, maybe some cloud over here. I need someone who's got breadth, right? So in tech, if you're going down that path, it's real common for people to say, I need to pivot for a minute, right? As a lifestyle, not just as a one-off. Now, you want to be careful about how you position that, meaning, hey, I'm coming to Microsoft, so therefore I want you to see if I can do this, right? We want to see that you've kind of made some strides. Take a boot camp, you need to be, right? Get into a user group. User groups are amazing, and a lot of my engineers run them. They're customer user groups. Anybody can join, go out on Meetup. They have SharePoint Saturdays. They have SCCM Fridays. And it's literally just a bunch of geeks getting together and talking about, hey, this is the stuff we're seeing in our environment, troubleshooting, doing some technical consumption in terms of readiness. But I think if you're prescriptive, and going back to your example, there's a whole industry. Austin is a booming industry in the film industry, and Microsoft's a big technical giant in that space. That's a clear path for you. Take that passion, don't pivot off it. Okay. Dive into it with technology. But with you, if you're more the engineer type, I assume.
Yeah, I have a background in engineering and product design.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Or
I can
education.
spot you a million miles away.
Yeah.
I noticed you actually earlier when I came in. Yeah. Sorry, because I just deal with engineers all the time, right? And they have a certain way about them. So that's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So, right? So I would just sit down and be very prescriptive around, okay, for the next 12 months, because technology is moving so fast, for the next 12 months, I want to focus on these 4 technologies, right? And then get some experiences. There are tons and tons and tons of free boot camps because of all the middle skill work, right? And opportunities through Anita B. And ACC as well. And just dabble. And then what you'll do, you'll reduce down the noise of that 4. And you'll go, I really actually probably could have just done this one thing because this is what I really like now. I like the left turn I'm taking now, right? That's a lifestyle of an engineer, but you need to be prescriptive about what are you focusing on, what experiences are you kind of building into that, because we expect you. There's no way you can access engineering training material like what you get at Microsoft. It's not public. We have some certifications that, are obviously you can get them. But it is a crazy innovation mind head, massive technical consumption, right? And so we like curious. We like growth mindset. We like someone who says, I have them real strong here, but I want to veer off and build some breadth here. That's a perfect mindset for us of someone who wants to come in and innovate, right? So just think of it in that text and kind of roll with it, and then keep that curious mindset because that's the sign of a perfect engineer.
Thank you.
So are you asking on a resume?
Also on a resume.
Yeah, so I think we've all touched on that. Listed as, if you are a student, listed on your resume, student, and then list all of your projects. And that's an indication to me as a recruiter that, she just doesn't want to be tech support. I mean, she's taking these coding, she's in this, and she's doing that, and look at her projects. So that tells me, she's growing.
So I'm not a student.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that may be relevant to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Here, so.
Or if you're taking, what is it that you're currently doing to grow your coding skills?
So I guess taking a step back, coming into this event, I didn't realize it was very coding focused, so I'm more on like a mechanical engineering background. So I've kind of, I guess, in my daily work, I don't have a lot of opportunities to do that. So I'm kind of like, I guess I'm just trying to figure it out, and maybe is more of a one-on-one if we start going more into the details of like my personal history.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it general for everyone here.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just kind of like how I was just kind of wondering how you can kind of like think about the things that you're doing currently, and or I like that answer, like showing curiosity, volunteering more, taking courses outside of your, let's say, daily job. So I think that was kind of what I was looking for in that.
And just to add on that, just to let you know, we hire electrical engineers, we hire architectural engineers through our university recruiting program, because not just being an engineer is your only option.
Yeah.
There's a lot of roles that need technical. You have to have technical capabilities. That's a baseline, and then you spin off from that. Secondly, what's kind of cool about that is if you have that solidified in your brain, we hire at a high velocity into the customer-facing engineering and consulting roles out of our CTS organization, which is our customer technical support team. So that's a great experience to have. But if there's no growth there, you want to make sure the company you're talking to has the ability for you to be agile and move throughout the entirety of those spaces. Because Microsoft, we want you to do that. We want you to go from support engineering out to customer-facing experiences and then continue building you from there. Because people, in our perspective, is our intellectual property because they innovate every product we've ever created or designed or sold or supported.
Thank you so much.
And that's our last question. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for attending our event. Do we have recruiters still that can work on resumes? Yes, we do. So please, if you have not gone and had your resume reviewed by the recruiters, please, you can do so now. Or just hang out. We'll network, and there's still food and drinks over there. So, and definitely come by and see me or Jyoti over there with the camera if you're interested in talking about AnitaB.org. And I hope that you are. Thank you, ladies, for all of your advice.